Welcome to the Flower Lounge, a place for conversations with wildly creative people and a little plant-loving wisdom to help you experience life in full bloom. I'm Katie Hess, flower alchemist and founder of LOTUSWEI, and I believe in a world where we're all living at our personal edge.
I am beautifully patterned linen, naturally dyed, beige and burgundy.
I'm swimming in a pool of chocolate naked.
I am Jasmine, sexy and expressive, inviting all to deepen their sensual natures.
I am a landslide, mud overflowing, slippery and sliding.
I am an oak, standing tall, firm and solid to the ground.
I am a spicy turmeric latte, a yellow shimmering ray of light leading the way to a tall, fragrant Bodhi tree that contains magical coconuts filled with nutritious, thirst-quenching water fragrant with the smells of orchids.
I'm a palm tree that's old, but still keeping strong.
I am a dewy black iris, glowing by the crescent moonlight.
I am vibrant green, flourishing in the jungle.
I am pop rocks. Pink rainbow sprinkles, whipped cream, and a cherry.
I am an outdoor altar by the ocean, sacred, expansive, and numinous.
I am a light-hearted memoir, full of breezy parallels and insight.
I'm crying, tears draining from the deep abyss of one dividing into two.
I am the morning, just as the sun emerges from the horizon.
I am rubies cut into facets, adorning a brown-skinned Indian woman's neck.
I am stripped from the fear that holds me back.
I am coconut water, just in my element, juicy and fresh. You just go down to the tree and pick me up and drink me.
I am fall, just before it transitions into winter.
I am the sound of my heart beating underwater.
I am a tightly wound rose waiting to bloom.
I am Pegasus, ready for action and springing her wings.
I am a gentle river, flowing, generous, soothing, beautiful, and calming.
Would you consider, or will you have maybe flower alchemy trainings? You know, you dabbled that around, like where we could, help promote ceremonies and actually say that we've trained with you to do it. But more than all that, to actually train with you to do it, Yeah, I don't know exactly, but would you consider doing something like that? Like
Master training program.
What's that?
Like a master training program, kind of?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
It could be anything. I mean, I've totally enjoyed the trainings that you've done. I think you've done 3 of them. I don't know. I love learning from you. Even just the way you describe flowers and how they can support your lives and resonate with you and help you. Any form of that.
So yes, we'll work on it in 2019, and you can come to Phoenix for that.
Can I come to that educational one as well?
You all are welcome. Of course.
Touching a little bit more on that, your new building that you are creating, your space, will you have, what does that look like? Will people be able to come and have classes there, a retreat there?
Yeah, so it's 15,000 square feet broken up into 2 floors. There's like a larger event room. There'll be a little store, lots of offices. It's like a hybrid between a wellness center and co-working on the top floor. On the bottom floor will be where LOTUSWEI is. and photo podcasting rooms. So yes, you can come there and do retreats. We just don't have like beds and showers and that type of thing, but if folks are at hotels or Airbnbs, we could host groups happily. If anyone wants to have events or trainings or, yeah. Or come join us in the space.
Do what?
Come join us in the space.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could elaborate more on the Rain of Gold orchid, on why you sent it to us before this trip.
Yeah, so that orchid, that was so weird. Taylor and I were just like, God, we would love to collect this orchid, but how do you find it growing in the wild? And we actually did find it, but this incredible 80-something-year-old woman saw that we were poking around, and she invited us into her backyard where she had just a ton of this particular type of orchid, and I just was like blown away by this woman's generosity and open-heartedness to let us into her house or into her home and her yard, and it just felt like such a monumental bridge of generosity. And I don't know, it just felt like the right one to sort of get everyone on the same page in terms of open-heartedness and sharing ourselves. Because I remember having a conversation with this woman, and she was just like so herself, like hacking stuff down with a machete and laughing about her age and talking about her death, and it was like instant at ease. And so it was a way to try to like create that beforehand. Did that answer? Okay. And if you have questions for Lisa or Erin or Robin too.
I have a question for Lisa, and for both of you. Is it possible to be pointed in the direction of or be provided with the mantra or the chant that we've heard several times in meditation, so that we can look at it, learn it ourselves,
the short one,
understand the meaning behind it?
We were taught by a Tibetan Lama.
Actually, it was at your request, right, Katie? He came down from the mountain and taught us, and some of those things have to be passed from from one person to another person.
If you want to like chant it, but you can read it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just had some way to find it and just look at it.
And
I understand what you're saying.
I've got a PDF of it, so we can definitely make that available.
Yeah, even if it's something that we heard and could just.
Yeah.
We can also make a recording of it if you like.
That'd be so special to hear those guys.
I agree that the visceral, the first time you did it by yourself, because I did a session with you, I mean, the whole visceral, and the two of you together, it's just, there's no describing what goes through your body, mind, and soul when you're in the same room as your voices. It's just unreal. You feel the
Wouldn't that be sweet to have
what's
that as
always
something
there
that
to
we could
support us. It's amazing.
turn on and listen to?
I have a question for you. So I noticed you put in the first round of needles. You feel the pulse, you put in the first round of needles, and then you check the pulse again. Do you notice a shift in that amount of time?
Yeah.
It depends. Sometimes you can notice a shift immediately, and sometimes it takes 10 or 15 minutes, so it just depends on
moment and what I'm feeling, how often or quickly I'll check back in. But that's my biggest acupuncture relier tool. Good question.
And do you use like specific protocols? Like, let's say someone's digestion is off. Do you use a specific protocol, or do you just start sort of like intuitively creating something based on like where you feel?
Both. So all the points on the meridian, so there's like, I don't know, 400 and some, have like specific functions. So sometimes I'll pick a point based on its specific function, or based on the fact that that's like the source point on the wood meridian or something like that, if it's more constitutional. And then there is no point protocol for like diarrhea or something, but there are point protocols in 5-element for pulse diagnosis. So sometimes there are like specific blocks that I can feel in a pulse, and that will be like these 4 points or these 8 points, and that we do like specific. Otherwise it's more intuitive and custom. So like no 2 treatments this week were the same, you know, which is kind of cool.
So for Katie, like we have morning, been in the flower evolution and been using the tinctures in the morning, and been doing the mantra, and just doing the intention, setting it for the day. And what do you do for like to start your day, for your practice, that we might be able to pick up, that we could incorporate into with continuing to use the flower essence?
A sitting practice is really helpful. Even more helpful is moment-to-moment awareness, or as much as you can possibly remember. So like you might be driving and you get to a red light, and instead of like checking your phone at a stoplight, you might just take that opportunity to relax your body, or look around, or hear the sounds, or be aware of your breath. And like even just being aware of your own breath, the more that you can unhook from the thinking, and just be aware of every breath, it's an extremely powerful practice. I know that Sakyamuni said at one time that and this was after he became fully enlightened, he said that if we were aware of every breath that we took from the moment we woke up till the moment we went to sleep, if we were just simply aware of every breath, we would be fully enlightened. So even just that as a method to constantly, bring yourself back to your breath is a powerful, powerful method. And then me personally, I take a lot of flower essences. As much as you feel possible. I usually pick one elixir that I'm really focusing on, whether that's flower evolution or something else, to like really target in on something, and then add other stuff.
So the oil and the mist and the tincture itself, so like I've been doing the Wild Abundance, and so using the essence and the mist when I drive or am in the car, I start that out in the morning, and I try to write down the different things that they do and try to just kind of reinforcing that during the day. And that's the only one I have the oil with and the mist and everything. So
they're going to work regardless. Like if you just sort of like mindlessly took them, they will definitely benefit you. But what you're doing, the kind of activity that you're talking about, is going to magnify your awareness of what they're doing. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we can just take things without thinking about it, but then if we remember, what effect is this actually having on me? It will enhance your awareness of it and make space for more wisdom to arise.
This isn't so much a question as it is more of an acknowledgement. Robin, I overheard Robin talking about the serums, and I use the serums on myself and on my client's face and body, but I never thought to put the serum in my hair, and I use oils on my hair every day. So I'm grateful for that, because all it did was just expand it one step farther of the uses that I did not have before.
Enjoy that flowery hair.
Katie, what was the first flower that spoke to you, and what was its message?
It was the fireweed. So it was the very first major collection trip I did in Canada, and you probably heard me tell this story.
Oh yeah,
the animals.
Was the story. Oh yeah, that was really cool.
And it was like a butterfly circling, and then it landed on the fireweed. And that turned out to be, I would say, the flower that all Americans need the most. And have need the most. It's for healing wounds of the heart.
If you visit Alaska, just FYI, you'll get a lot of products with fireweed. Yeah. And it's the way that in Alaska, we know that snow and winter is on the way. When the fireweed reaches the top, summer's over. And that's what we have, summer and then winter. Just those two.
It's a really cool flower too, because it's besides the essence being, healing wounds of the heart, it's a pioneer species, which means that it heals the earth, it heals the animals. So if a fire ravages through the forest, it will spring up in order to heal the other plants and trees and animals. And if you want to see a really cool rendering of it, you just look on Jessica's back.
Is that fireweed?
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what I want to ask or how, but so Robin, with all the different movement practices, maybe a personal question, how do you use them, and then in your personal life, or and then how maybe to incorporate, or how do you choose, or I don't know, what I'm trying to say, for daily, or yeah.
I am a huge believer in practice, and similarly to what Katie said, I think having the sense of a set daily practice is really, it's life-changing. And then it's even magnifies the life-changingness when you have a daily practice that somehow offers you a route, a pathway to quickly drop into over and over and over again, to 10 times a day, 50 times a day, 100 times a day, as often as you can. And I'm also someone who believes that it is beneficial to do things the way that feels the most interesting to me. So I don't require myself to stick to one practice. I should say, if I'm going to teach something, I do require myself to stick to it, because I am not willing to teach something that I haven't really explored on my own for a long time. But aside from that, in my personal use, I tend to be a little bit phasic, and I like to be comfortable with that. So, and then I kind of feel like for me there's a little bit of a distinction between a movement practice that involves like moving, like rolling around on the floor and exploring, and then a movement practice like that, the embodiment lying down somatic practice that we did, where like I'm in stillness and I am exploring with my awareness in stillness. I say very lovingly that a lot of the stillness and seated practices were born during a time when humans were moving a lot more than the typical American does. And so I think it can be very, very beneficial to pair some kind of movement with any kind of seated practice or embodiment. And I don't mean you need to do like a 50-minute yoga class before Shavasana, but like I think it can really help us to come into our body if we've moved it a little bit. And I think if you think about the way that cultures were prior to now, there was so much more manual labor just involved in being alive. Like you carried water and you stirred things and you walked next door to borrow something, and we don't do any of that. So it's just nice to include a little bit of what does it feel like to do this and then do this. Did I answer? I really like, Katie and I had talked about having a list and then choosing your top 3. Often when I work with people and I'm encouraging them to get into a sense of practice, we'll do that. We'll sit down and come up with a list of 10 practices that they know how to do, and then we'll set an intention for 3 of them, and then we'll be like, over the next 40 days, can you do one of those 3 every day? And if you can do it once a day, then can you discover what it leads you to in terms of the energetic pathway, and then can you drop into that state over and over? That was a really long answer, and I don't really think I said anything clear, but I was transmitting something, I'm sure. It's supposed to be fun, right? Because you're gonna find that it's hard. So I think it's good if it's also fun.
That was for you too, Chris.
I maybe told Kristen that I might make some recordings.
In a leotard.
That's true. I totally forgot about the leotard. Now I really am gonna make. That was when we were making videos. So if anyone wants to make a professional quality video, I will invest in a leopard print leotard. Simple is really good.
I have a question for all of our teachers, if in maybe a sentence or two, first thought, best thought, what words of wisdom you might have for someone who is starting over in their business.
What do you mean by starting over?
Building up a new business.
I mean, my favorite advice for business is to figure it out as you go. Like everything, don't think that there's anything that you should know ahead of time. Every single thing about growing a business is just figuring it out. And the faster you can figure things out and make decisions, the faster your business will grow. I don't know if it's you or someone else, but and the more, at least this is my philosophy, but I see business as a spiritual path, and so I realize that the more spiritually evolved I become, the more spiritually evolved the business becomes. And so giving yourself the luxury to be able to indulge time in these practices will only also exponentially magnify the benefit and impact and prosperity of your business.
Two things come to mind, and one is that the beauty of having your own business is that you can design it to be whatever you want it to be. And you can throw away any kind of ideas that come from other people's businesses and magazines and internet, all that crap. Don't even get involved in that, because you get to choose, and your needs are yours, and your desires are yours, and the things that bring you joy are yours, and you can incorporate all of those in your business, and you don't have to follow anyone else's pathway and do it any way that anyone has ever done it before. Amen. Yeah.
I think, like, similarly to what they both just said, I would safely hazard a guess that every being sitting in this room is, like, not super interested in the old way, which means that none of the old maps work. So it's like you're creating, it's like you're meeting yourself, and you're meeting your body of work, and you're making a map for where that work goes, and you're trying to ignore the old maps all at the same time. And that new map doesn't exist, so it's emergent, which can be disconcerting at times. So it's uncomfortable, and that's okay. And also, like, find a few people who are also really amazing and not wanting to do it the old way and looking for the emergent maps, and, like, hold on to them and check in and offer them support and get support from them, because that's really priceless. And the other thing I would say, which is really, really hard, is that you're still the point. Like, no matter what we all do or don't do for work and with business, and it's beautiful and it's a representation of us, and it can be a spiritual path, but if you've disappeared your self, your no self, There's no language anymore that works for me. If you're offering enlightenment to everyone else and not yourself, whoops, recheck. So there's a lot of oops, recheck that happens in the divine feminine business model.
And that's not to say when you make a change of what you've always known and you feel that there is this security to it, and a lot of times I think that happens on the financial sense, where someone doesn't want to jump in naked to a new dream or something that they've always wanted to do. And when you make that decision finally, it's scary, and it could be imperfect, and there will people that will not show up or make promises that are not kept when you're starting a new business. But that never stopped me from moving forward on a daily basis because I wanted it here. When you have heart and soul, I think it would be a disservice to not exchange that magnificence with other people. And somehow the path sometimes is bumpy, but it's still a path, and it's our choice to keep moving forward. And if I wouldn't have done that, if I wasn't scared shitless, I would have still stayed stuck in my corporate job. My heart sings on a daily basis. That old saying, you know, if you love your job, you'll never work another day, and it's true. It really, really is true. And just when I think that it can't get any better, a new client will come in, and she teaches me. There's always something that I can take from, you know, new clients that I was never able to get in my corporate job. Not like this.
I think you guys pretty much covered it. But for me, I think all of that was said, but also I found it hard to, it's easy for me to get like wrapped up in other ways or finding something that works, and so I do it because it works, but it kind of pulls me out of alignment, and it's kind of a tricky game. So I find just taking care of me as like number one, so not negotiable, to keep me grounded, and then support, especially in those early phases, really makes a difference for me, just to like kind of have that constant reminder of like, no, but remember, I know this is where you're used to, but so it's just, that helps me. So don't be afraid to get support, especially in the early days when it feels like you shouldn't get support yet. But it's when it's key, I've found.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Get really comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like forever.
It's a good uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
How did y'all each know what your heart and soul was? And like picked it, or if you have, like, how do you,
like in terms of picking a profession, or
yeah, like, or just kind of like what we were talking about in the ocean. don't know, is that the right question you think for that?
I feel like for me, I still don't know. Like I used to get really tripped up on what is my purpose, and I still don't know what my purpose is. But I loved China, and I loved health, and I loved women, and now I do all of those things every day. But I don't know if I'll be doing all of these things 5 years from now. I don't know. There's new interests and new people I meet and new teachers I meet every year. And so for me, I had to get less attached to my purpose and kind of just more attached to what am I into right now? And what do I want to learn right now? And what do I want to give right now? And how do I want to be and how do I want to interact right now? And that was a lot less pressure. And it's working so far for me. Some days are easier than others.
I would say that I discovered it exactly how you do, which is you feel like doing something and you just do it. So like it might be crazy or weird and you're in Louisiana and you're like, I want to go to New York and go to this flower lounge. It's like that same, you just choose and you go, you feel an attraction and you make a move. Same as you.
I would second the sort of I have no idea what I'm doing vibe. I just like be who I am now, and then that's my offering. And then as that grows and shifts and changes and evolves, which is happening all the time for me, because I really love, I love self-inquiry, I love practice, I love learning, I love study, I love immersing myself in. So for my personality type, I sort of thrive on the spaciousness. So I think a little bit it's like, as you get to know yourself, you start to see like what patterns feel really good to you and what patterns feel like you think they're supposed to be what you enact, but they don't feel that good. And then you can just kind of lean into the ones that feel innate. And then if it doesn't have a name, you just start making names up. I literally have changed the name of what I do and what I call myself 3 times a year for the past 6 years. And it's not saying that's a good business plan by any means, but it's I don't, if you're in the realm of your business kind of being who you are, or what you're up to, or what you're being, you might kind of give yourself a little space.
I think they covered it.
I think the whole purpose thing doesn't even exist. It's like a trap. Yeah, it doesn't. It's
It's like a way to not do anything, because you're you're looking for your thing, and you feel bad that you haven't found it, or you can pay someone a whole lot of money to help you find it and tell you what it is. But all of that is not you doing it.
I think the most important thing is just being a decent human being. Being loving, generous, kind, not lying, not stealing. All of those things are so important. It doesn't really matter what you do, it's how you do it. But you can discover what your really good at. Like what you're really good at could be very different from what Marisha is really good at in terms of like what Robin was saying, your innate nature. And one sort of way to look at how to find that is to notice when you just move into action without hesitation. Like when something comes, you just like act right away. For some people it might be cooking. For other people it might be someone has an ailment and you just want to solve it. Maybe Erin's life purpose isn't needles, but her innate nature may be someone has a physical or some sort of issue, heart issue, and she's without hesitation goes to find the solution. So you can observe when in your life that you act without hesitation, and then that can give you a clue to what your own true nature is. Does that make sense?
I really think also, like, ask for help. Like, ask your friends, or ask your meditation practice, or ask your guides, or what you believe in, or ask the plants. Like, we're not alone. Like, we feel alone, and we get in, like, I am alone, and I have to figure out what to do in this place all alone. And that's really hard when, like, the universe wants to support us and we're in connection. And so when we feel lost or confused, we can just ask, help direct me, help me feel what's arising, what wants to move through me most easily. You know, some people describe like a song. It doesn't mean you have to sing, but that sense of like feeling that there's a series of qualities that wants to move through you. And so if you're like not feeling that, you might just be like, can you just help me feel that? To the flower essence you're working with, or the dog that you share your home with, or the plants around you, or your power animals, or whatever your frame of support feels authentic to you. You don't have to figure everything out on your own. For your acupuncturist, she probably does.
Good.
I think it's really helpful to have like a discussion like this, and it really means a lot to us. Because we're all on these different journeys, and we're looking for that support from people that we admire so much and that we didn't know before, but you know, we really need that direction. So we appreciate you taking the time to do that for us.
Anytime.
You all lead with your hearts, for sure.
We didn't talk about it much on this trip, but like, I love to like talk about business. I love it. It's like one of my favorite things. So
Me too.
If anyone else just feels like they need to chat business,
Me too.
Please give me a call, because I love it, meeting other female entrepreneurs and just brainstorming. So
You have quite a few people in this room who would be more than happy to like geek out about female entrepreneurship ad nauseum. So.
Also, just a heads up, guys, if you do have any questions for Katie, you can send them to podcast@lotuswei.com, and we will have them answered on our episodes. So, yeah, if you guys have any burning questions, just send them on over to me. Your podcast. Podcast@lotuswei.com, text@lotuswei.com, media@lotuswei.com.
We'll find you.
I have a few different aliases. All of them go to the same. Go to you.
Awesome. Yes.
And I know that you were talking about wild abundance, you know, these last couple months about the entrepreneurship and starting a new business, and that how that really resonated with you, and your, you know, having this new building and all of those things. So, you know, I think that's really come across strong by being part of that club, even though, I mean, it's as much as you want to put into it. I think it's
I mean, I've gotten a lot out of it. And I think all of us talked about how reassuring it was to hear your voice on those podcasts, just like, and that we have a variety. I mean, Robin's on it. I didn't know Erin's on, so now I want to go see you at number 43. So it's very supportive for us to do, to
And
hear
their
that.
episodes are so good. So good. And Lisa will be on next. Should we wrap for here? And then if those who want to go swim can swim, and those who want to just hang can hang, and yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to The Flower Lounge. I'm Katie Hess, and we'll be releasing a new podcast every Wednesday. If you like what you heard, or you know someone who might be touched by our conversation, share it with them. And don't forget to subscribe. To find out what your favorite flowers mean about you, take the quiz at LOTUSWEI.com.